Screen Slurps.
Hello, and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Dash Gearhart, also known as DJ, and this week we are reviewing the first non-holiday movie of this year of 2021. We are reviewing the 2020 film titled Soul on Disney Plus.
I got Soul, and I'm super
movie.
bad.
Adam, you know, I'm really craving a nice new soul-sounding type of song from you. It's been a while. You're good at it, too.
I thought that was soulful enough. That was like I almost said Jamie Foxx. He's the main man in this movie, but actually that was a James Brown song. That wasn't a Jamie Foxx song. He does some different hits for us, but yeah, James Brown. Shout out to James Brown. Yeah.
This is the second movie we reviewed where Jamie Foxx is the lead.
That's true. And wow, actually, the other movie we reviewed with Jamie Foxx in the lead was another soul-filled movie. Power. He's got the power. Yes.
Project Power.
Project Power.
Remember your favorite cosplay to dress as Project Power Man?
Yeah. Yes. And oh my gosh, Project Power, talk about being a soul-filled movie and talk about being on a streaming service. Can we just talk about all of the theaters being destroyed in the world right now? I'm sorry. Is that too much of a Debbie Downer?
Yes. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to.
We got this movie going on.
It's
Disney
like a best
Plus.
friend. It's like if someone told me you died. I mean, don't die.
No.
But
okay.
I'm sad.
All
I'm
right.
sad now, and it's your fault, Mr. Adam.
Well, that brings me to another point about this movie, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
But you know what we could talk about until we get to that is our side slurps. So tell me, buddy, what else besides Soul have you been slurping on the pop culture side? And by that, I mean, what have you been watching? What have you been playing? What have you been reading? Or maybe what have you been making this past week?
Okay, well, before we talk too much about Soul, I have been watching Strange Addictions. I know it's a very random television show, and I don't suggest it to any of our listeners out there. You don't need to watch Strange Addictions. I've just been watching it a little bit just to see some of the weird things that people are into. That's what it's called, Strange Addictions. It's strange. And one of the highlight episodes, I guess I should say, that I saw was a woman who was into drinking paint. So that was one thing. Please don't drink paint. Yeah, don't ever drink paint. I highly do not suggest that.
But it looks so good.
Oh, Dash, no. And there was another woman who ate mattresses.
Now, I don't blame any of these people because I can't say that I haven't thought any of those may have at least looked or seemed delicious. I'm serious. Like, I also think like soap looks good. Like a white bar of soap looks like a nice like cookieless ice cream sandwich to me sometimes. So I'm not gonna judge them. I'm not gonna judge them that she ate a mattress.
Is that how they got the idea for the ice cream sandwich? Was just making soap and they thought
it looks so good.
I also got into playing the video game Stardew Valley, which is basically a farm simulator game.
Very nice.
However, it is a very good two-dimensional RPG game / farm simulation game. I highly do suggest checking that game out. It is a very good game. You can also do co-op on the game. So if you have a friend who has the game, it's very easy to do co-op gameplay on it. If you have the application Steam on your computer, very easy to play Stardew Valley. So definitely check that one out. If you haven't played it yet, do check it out. I do recommend. And I will be reading a series of comics that I got for Christmas for Spider-Ham, for anyone that's seen the most recent animated Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse.
There's a whole series on Spider-Ham?
Yes. I got the whole series of Spider-Ham comics for Christmas.
Are you a fan?
I haven't read them yet, but I wanted them.
You did want them. Okay.
Yeah. I saw Into the Spider-Verse and I thought Spider-Ham was hysterical. I mean, John Mulaney was really funny as Spider-Ham, and I thought just the character Spider-Ham was hysterical. So I looked online to see if there was a series of Spider-Ham comics, and there is. And so I asked for it for Christmas, and I got it. So I will be reading all of the Spider-Ham comics. It came as just one, not separate individual comics. I'm sure you can find them as separate individual comics, but I got just a big novel, basically, of the collection of Spider-Ham comics. So
Do you think Spider-Ham's going to be in the next Spider-Man 3?
that would be so funny.
I mean, they got Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. They got Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. They have D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk as Kingpin. And they got Charlie Cox as Daredevil.
And
So they got to have Spider-Ham now.
would they put Jake Gyllenhaal in there too?
As to the backup Tobey Maguire Spider-Man?
No, but Jake Gyllenhaal was a villain in
Oh, you're right.
yeah.
I didn't watch the last one. Dude,
And
I'm
Michael
kinda
Keaton was the Vulture. So
He was good. I saw the first one, and Tom Holland's a great Spider-Man. But and they're not bad. I'm just so tired of superhero movies. I should say I'm so tired of like Marvel and DC superhero films. Like
Yeah.
I think we were talking about last week.
Yeah,
as well.
we talked about this last week, but yeah.
Non-DC, non-Marvel like movie came out that was a superhero, I'd be like down for it. And like I feel bad saying I'm tired of DC and Marvel because I've loved DC and Marvel my entire life, but they've just been so run to the ground and it's been so oversaturated. And
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel bad about saying that. I feel like I'm betraying them, but it's the truth, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I 100% agree with you, but what have you been up to?
Well, some things I've been slurping this week. Of course, I've been playing Fire Emblem Three Houses, and right now I'm doing the alternate Black Eagles path. It's the path where you start hanging out with Edelgard, and then you tell her to fuck off later. Basically, in the game, it's like she's like, "Hey, do you want to help me take over the world?" And instead of saying yes this time, I'm gonna say, "Nah, dog."
Tell her no.
I'm gonna be a good guy this time. I'm not gonna take over the world and kill a bunch of people.
You
I'm
can't
gonna save
love
the
her,
world.
okay? You just can't.
No,
It's not a dating game.
dude. You gotta play it. There is some dating elements to it. Like I said, it's like Persona. Anyway, when I say dating, the most dating it is tea time, and there's tea time, sauna time, lunch time, and like deep emotional conversations. That's as
needs to be
dating
another
as it
game.
gets. It's not a dirty game. It's really not. But it's a very social game. But social as I mean within fictional characters. It's not World of Warcraft. You're not playing really with other people. I mean, you can, but it's such a lame multiplayer mode. It's a very in-depth one-person role-playing game. It's so good. Anyway,
Very
check
interesting
it out.
side life you're living, Dash.
Dude, I've been playing this game all year. You have to check it out. I've been talking about it
There's
every
real
episode.
life and there's Dash life.
Why have you not checked it out yet? You need to,
I don't live the
bud.
fantasy life of Dash Gearhart.
You live the fantasy life of Adam Eisner. It can include Fire Emblem Three Houses. Anyway, moving on. A thing I watched this past week that I binged the entirety of, which was amazing, is Cobra Kai Season 3. It came out on New Year's Day, and I watched all of it that day. It was so good, man. Like, sincerely, it is not just funny, it's also got amazing fight choreography in it, and also like it's like really deep. Like I was getting pumped and like also trying not to cry through most of it. And for me personally, it hits so many heartstrings, so many like very, I guess in these terms of martial arts, pressure points for me metaphorically. And it in so many ways too, so many different characters do. And it is so good, man. If you haven't seen it, listeners, if you haven't seen any of Cobra Kai, it is on Netflix now, and you can check out all 3 seasons. You will not regret it. It is so good. Keep in mind the first 2-3 episodes take a little bit to get into, but once you're in, you're in. And also, I recommend watching at least the first Karate Kid movie if you haven't before you watch Cobra Kai. It does help to see all 3 of the ones with Ralph Macchio in them from back in the 80s. But definitely watch at least the first movie if you haven't seen it, or you haven't seen it in like a really long time, because those movies are like, they came out before I was born, so been a long time. And also, wow, Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, who played Daniel and Johnny in those movies, have aged tremendously. It's been like 36 years since that first movie came out, and it's like, dude, are you guys immortal? Because you guys are like, both in your 50s. Ralph Macchio is pushing 60 and he looks amazing. Anyway, check out Cobra Kai on Netflix. I've also been playing Assassin's Creed Rogue, which is a lot of fun, and Hades, which is really cool. Very popular game right now. A lot of streamers on Twitch are streaming that right now.
Interesting.
Check it out. It's really cool. The character design is really great. It's a really fun, like, hack and slash, like 3/4 like overhead view, or side view. Really, it's kind of like Hyper Light Drifter. It's a lot of fun. You play Zagreus, the son of Hades, and you're escaping Hades, the place Hades, not his dad Hades. Well, actually, he's escaping his father and the place Hades. And meanwhile, he gets like powers that are bestowed upon him by like Zeus and other Olympian gods. But it's very cool. Check it out. And also something kind of weird. I rewatched something from my childhood. It's one of those FM. It was adapted as one of those FMV games, which was on the Sega CD back in the 90s, and I remember having this game called Masked Rider Zoe, that's Z-O, Masked Rider Zoe. And what it was basically adapted from like a movie that was in the sort of Super Sentai category, which was basically original Power Rangers before they were Power Rangers here in the United States. And it is like, it feels so Japanese, and I mean that in the most loving way possible, because I am also a weeb. I love Japanese culture, pop culture especially. And it is creepy and fun and crazy and insane. And it's weird how even though I played that game a lot when I was younger, it feels, I don't know, almost cozy familiar. And there's some very terrifying things, even though it's meant for kids. But check it out. It's on YouTube, the entire movie, Masked Rider Zoe. I believe there's like other series and stuff, but you want to check out the 1993 movie? Yeah. Anyway, real weird. We're seeing. It's good to have a couple drinks to it and just kind of like say what you want to say, almost kind of like a Mystery Science Theater night. I do recommend it.
Nice.
But knowing those things now, let's move on to the meat of the episode, and that is us talking about Soul. Yes,
Soul.
the 2020 American computer animated fantasy comedy drama film produced by Pixar Animation Studios and released by Walt Disney Pictures. Directed by Pete Docter, Pete Docter, and co-directed by Kemp Powers, cool names. The film stars the voices of Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Graham Norton, Rachel House, Alice Braga, Richard Avade, Felicia Rashad, Donald Rawlings, Questlove, and Angela Bassett. I didn't know Questlove was on it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The story follows a middle school music teacher named Joe Gardner, who seeks to reunite his soul and his body after they are accidentally separated just before his big break as a jazz musician. Doctor began developing the film in 2016, working from his contemplations on the origins of human personalities and the concept of determinism. He co-wrote the screenplay with Mike Jones and Powers. The film's producers consulted various jazz musicians, including Herbie Hancock and Terry Lynn Carrington, and animated its musical sequences using the sessions of musician Joe Batiste. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, who created original compositions for the film. As reference, Soul is the first Pixar film to feature an African-American protagonist. Soul premiered at the London Film Festival on October 11th, 2020. Originally intended to be a theatrical release in the United States, the film was released to stream on Disney Plus on December 25th, 2020, and was theatrically released in countries without the streaming service. It became the first feature-length film from Pixar not to be given a wide theatrical release, and the first to be billed as a Disney Plus original film. The film received highly positive reviews from critics with praise for its animation, story, voice acting, and music. And it had a budget of over 150 million, and at the box office it made 32.5 million. Keep in mind that this is still COVID-19 times during pandemic, so
right,
it's pretty good.
We really don't
good,
have
like,
much of a theater system
everything
going on, so
exactly. So it's not even. I'm sorry, I shouldn't even mention how much they made because like it's irrelevant. It's really just like how many people are watching it. They should start literally start putting instead of how much a movie made, since things are going to be start streaming online now, they should put how many hits it's got, how many views.
My question to that would be, how are they even making money in a box office when the box office system hardly even exists? How are people renting this movie should be the real question, because how are they even going to the theater to see Soul? What theater is this even releasing in is the real question, when theaters are hardly even open at this point. So was this movie up for rental on was there a rental release for this movie?
You know what? Keep talking. I'm looking that up right now.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. When I was looking into this movie and I saw that the budget was 150 million and they made any sort of revenue in the box office, I thought that was interesting that they made 32.5 million in the box office. Yeah, that's interesting.
You know what? I'm not seeing anything on rental. Because Mulan was a movie that you had to pay an extra $30 to see.
Yeah, the new Mulan,
free.
yes.
So that kind of makes sense if it's if it's a movie that someone really wants to watch. It's okay, cool. You don't have to pay an extra $30, but you gotta start subscribing to Disney Plus. It's almost like a hook, get people in. It's hey, you really want to watch this movie? Well, you just have to pay $7 and you get access to all our other content too. Watch that movie, watch other stuff. Yeah, you want to keep subscribing? Cool. It's kind of get someone to really hooked in instead of having to pay extra.
It's an interesting thought then. I wonder what theaters this movie was playing in, or who went and saw this movie in a theater, or if it wasn't at a theater, then where's that box office money coming from? It's a question that I do not have the answer for, unfortunately. I'm really curious.
Like I said, I think there needs to be a new stat now where it's how many hits did this get? How many people are watching this? What's the ratings? Not so much of how much it made anymore. And like I said, it's going to be
is that where they're getting the revenue from? Is it because they're getting plays on Disney Plus? Because people are watching this on Disney Plus, then Disney Plus is paying them out?
Disney Plus, because it serves as, I'm guessing it serves as something to draw people in, to keep get them hooked, like a drug almost, hey, this movie looks really good too, and watch all the other cool shit we have too.
That's how artists make money on streaming services like Spotify and things like that. If I'm a musician, I put my music up on Spotify and people are playing my music on Spotify, I am making revenue from each hit on Spotify. Then it may not be
people
much.
Subscribe to Spotify. You're part of what keeps their attention.
But if I'm an indie artist putting my music on Spotify and all of a sudden I'm getting millions of hits on Spotify, then I'm making a lot more money I was if I'm only getting hundreds of hits on Spotify.
Yeah, true. So, buddy, I assume this is the first time you've seen this. It was my first time since it's a brand new movie. What did you feel about this movie? And also, if you have any information too about it, please feel free to regurgitate that. So what did you feel about Soul, starring Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey?
Yeah, absolutely. This is certainly the first time I saw this movie. This movie is fresh out the gate. It is a brand new film, 2020 release. Of course, it's the first time I saw this movie, but I thought it was a great movie. I thought this was a fantastic Pixar release. To be completely honest, I don't know if it is the best Pixar release. That's not me being biased because I have a tattoo of Wall-E on my arm. However, this is a fantastic movie from Pixar. And I'm going to also say I thought it was very interesting that directed by Pete Docter. It's got some certain similarities to Inside Out. Not saying it's the exact same thing, but and that's not me saying it's a bad movie either. I'm certainly not saying it's a bad movie, but I'm just saying Pete Docter also directed Inside Out and he directed Soul. So it's got a little bit of a similarity there. You can kind of see, well, the characters in Inside Out do look a little bit like the characters in Soul. You can kind of see a little bit of a similarity there. Both directed by Pete Docter. Also, who's the main character in Inside Out? It's Amy Poehler. Who's playing 22 in this movie? Tina Fey. Little bit of an interesting comparison there. Gotta say. Okay, that's just me, seeing some interesting similarities there. But moving back to Soul here, it's just awesome to see that Pete Docter brought in the writing here. This is the first Pixar film that has I'm going to say African-American / black main character for the movie. This is the very first Pixar film to do that. Thought that was a great step for Pixar to take. I also thought it was just fantastic to see that this is a movie around a fantastic musical main character, jazz musician as the main character. I love it. And to compare it to a video game that I thought was very fascinating, not to get too sidetracked, but for the video game listeners, the company Media Molecule made a video game. The people that made Little Big Planet, they made a video game called Dreams. That video game also follows a main storyline that's centered around a jazz musician who is a part of a jazz band that looks very similar to Soul. If you haven't played that game, check it out. It looks pretty similar to the movie Soul, but I'm going to focus more on Soul here. It's fantastic that the movie is about a jazz musician and that his interest is jazz. And I just thought that was so wonderful. And I thought that the directive that he had, that his interest and that his emotions in this movie were just so well thought out. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And I don't want to get too sidetracked. DJ, I'd like you to take it away before I get too lost in the moment here.
Before we get into that, just to kind of fill people in on the plot, if you haven't seen this, also please keep in mind, since I didn't say this earlier, if you are new to us, we do spoil the poop out of all the movies we talk about. So if you want to experience this without us talking about it, go watch it, please, and then keep listening to Screen Slurps in this episode. So we're going to get a little bit into the plot, and then I'll switch gears. So yeah. To refresh our memories, Joe Gardner, a middle school music teacher from New York City, dreams of a career in jazz, even though his mother, Liba, objects to it, fearing for his financial security. One day, Joe learns of an opening in the jazz band legend Dorothea Williams and auditions for it. Impressed with Joe's piano playing, Dorothea offers him a chance to perform later that night. As Joe happily heads on to prepare for the show, he falls down a manhole, and that's when the movie shifts and we see Joe being basically carried on the escalator to heaven,
the great beyond, stairway, as they call it,
the great beyond. And it just kind of, it's like a treadmill that just kind of brings you in this giant ass light, which is, we can only assume heaven, but they call it the great beyond. And then suddenly the character design very much changes. Like you said, Adam, it looks a lot like Pete Docter's other movie, Inside Out. It's immediately not, because you see Joe and like the people kids he's teaching and other people, they look like people. I mean, yes, it's like Pixar people. They're not like, I don't know, talking animals or anything. They look like people.
Can I interject for 1 second? Did you do any research on this film before you watched it? Did you really dig into it? Okay, because I really didn't dig too much into the animation style of the film. I knew there was, little blue people and things like that, and I knew there were humans, but I didn't watch too much of the trailer or anything like that before I started watching it. And I gotta say, it really kind of caught me off guard when he fell into that manhole.
Yep.
And I wasn't expecting that kind of transition to happen. And when it did, when he fell into the manhole, my first thought was, did he just die, or is he going to end up in a hospital, or what is the transition that's going to happen? And when that transition did happen, that art style change was so dramatic, but I thought it was a really good change. I thought it was a very nice change of the art style, and kudos to the animation team that was working on this film, because I thought it was a really, really nice change. And it took me for like I just thought it was a fantastic change. I thought it was it was not for bad. I thought it was for really good. It was a good, it was a good change. I have no other words to put it. I have no other way to say it.
Well, I respect that. I totally respect that. I'm on the opposite end.
Really? You think so?
Those are the parts of the movie I don't like. Those are the parts of the movie that, like, even though I love this film, I love the voice acting, I love the story, I love the script, I love it. I love start to finish. I love that it was about music. I love that there was another message of like, live your life and enjoy each moment. Like, I love that message, and I love, how Joe learns that in the end. And spoilers, he gets a second chance at life. The art style of the afterlife, I don't know. It was fine to me. It just really disconnected me from it. I love the art style on Earth, when they were, in their bodies. I loved that. But I didn't jive with they just remind me of like blue gummy bears, like little, like if anything, I'm like, I want some candy. I want to eat some gummy bears right now when I would see the souls. But that's just me. That's just, I wanted to like that part, but it just took me out of it. And I had to use initiative on my end to get myself back into it every time it cut to the afterlife parts. But also, I think that the fantastic voice acting would help pull me back in too, because Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, all of them great. Also, David Diggs is in this, and he played Lafayette in Hamilton, the musical, on stage. He was the voice of Paul in Soul. So that's really cool. David Diggs is awesome. And Questlove's in it, who also, I think...
He's the drummer. He's who is it? Curry? The kid drummer?
Yeah, and and Soul. But I think Questlove...
Well, he's the drummer for The Roots.
Oh, so Questlove... So do you watch Drunk History?
I do not, actually.
There's an episode where Lin-Manuel Miranda's on it, and he gets drunk, and he tells the story of Hamilton, and it's really funny. And, like, in the middle of him telling the story, Questlove calls him.
Oh, boy.
Questlove calls him, and he's like, dude, what's up? I heard you on Drunk History. And they, like, talk to him. Him and Derek Waters, they talk to him while he's telling the story. It's really funny. But yeah, Questlove and David Diggs, both pals of Lin-Manuel Miranda, are in Soul. Anyway, the cast is fantastic. The cast is so good. Again, that kept me going. I didn't do any research. I didn't even watch the trailer before I watched this. I didn't know it was Jamie Foxx until the very end. I kind of guessed it was Tina Fey. But I didn't even know who it was. And I'm like, oh, of course it's those two. It's fantastic. And so I was very drawn to this movie because mostly of who was in it and what it was about. So after, Joe gets brought to the place between, which is, basically where he's being led up to the great beyond. Joe finds himself as a soul heading into the great beyond. Unwilling to die before his big break, he tries to escape, but ends up in the great before, where soul counselors, all named Jerry, prepare unborn souls for life.
What a fun concept.
The concept was really fun. I did really like the system that they conceptualized for this. It made sense, and like, oh, this, of course they all have like that one little hole they have to fill with the spark.
Yeah, just imagine that every one of us as a child, as a soul before we're born, is just we're all before we're born, we're all assigned a an emotion basically, or a set of emotions. Like you're gonna be confident and narcissistic. All right, go over there.
You'll be insecure and you all will be self-absorbed. Yeah.
Yep.
It kind of makes us not responsible for our faults or our flaws,
Yeah.
But I was like, I didn't, I suck because I was just programmed this way. I call bullshit. We all have to grow and learn from ourselves and be better people. Anyway, including myself. But I did really like that system. It was really cool. And it seemed like sort of like a never ending process, I guess. I don't know. Were those baby souls, were they like reincarnated? Maybe I missed that. It kind of seemed to me that they were like recycled souls.
I don't think they were recycled souls. I mean, I like the introduction video that he had to sit through. It was kind of like there was like the souls, and basically they'd be assigned a counselor. The counselor would then have to try and get them an Earth badge so that they could go to Earth. And then if they... How did that work when a soul become lost, they'd end up in like the lost soul sort of in between?
Mm-hmm. Yep, each soul has a badge which, once filled out with traits, grants passage to Earth. Mistaken for an instructor, Joe is assigned to train 22, a character named 22, a cynical soul who has remained in the Great Before for millennia and sees no point in living on Earth. She finds her spark to complete her badge and agrees to give it to Joe so that he can return home. So then Joe tries to assist 22 in finding a passion, but the attempts prove futile. So then, we see Joe and 22. They're like, okay, let's go back to Earth. So then somehow they find their way, shot down back to Earth, and they aim for Joe's body, which is right now in the hospital because he mistakenly fell in a manhole.
Right.
And they put like this therapy cat on his lap to like kind of like stimulate his brain and his body, with the nice soft fur. And then as Joe and 22 are diving down to jump into, Joe's going for his body, they miss, and 22 goes in Joe's body, and Joe goes into the cat's body.
Well, 22 wasn't supposed to fall with him, and that's the problem.
No, you're right. You're right. I forget what happened. Why did she fall with him?
I think that when he was going to jump with him, it just kind of like they tripped together, and that's just kind of how it happened. It's just kind of like... I don't know if it was like he was pushed or it was just kind of like one of those like trip and stumble kind of things, and she fell with him. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So then, so now, Joe's back on Earth, and then he's got to make it to his gig. He's got to make it to this like gig that could just put him on the map. It could be his one moment where he makes it, and all these mishaps start happening. And along the way of him trying to get it trying to get there early, finding out from his friend who got him, his former student who got him the gig, saying that he's been replaced, but if he shows up real early and looks real nice in a suit, then maybe he can get it back. So then the cat, as Joe as the cat, is meanwhile talking to 22 in his own body to try to get him like spiffed up, trying to make him look good, feeding with pizza, and 22 is just surprisingly loving all these little moments in life that she thought she was just gonna hate, just enjoying.
And 22 as Joe, and 22 has to do all of this as Joe.
Yes, and 22 is just she's all hipster about Earth when she was in in the afterlife, but now she's like enjoying it. Like she enjoys like the wind that comes up from the subway, because they're in New York City, the subway through the gates on the ground, and a slice of pizza. And
I gotta say, it's as unsanitary as it would be to lay on the floor of, the Chicago sidewalk, since we're in Chicago, but especially in New York City, but it's pretty much the same in Chicago. But if I laid on the Chicago sidewalk, or if I, was standing in the middle of the street in New York City, it would be incredibly dangerous, or all of the things that were shown that 22 was doing as Joe, trying to run through New York City and just enjoy the silly, dumb things that she was doing that were so kiddish. It made me sort of reassess my thought process as an adult now, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this just makes me enjoy life 100% more, thinking to myself now, because it makes me want to really enjoy my life. And that was really what they were going for with this movie. Yeah. That was, I pretty much just gave away the end of this movie in that sentence. However,
Give it away, man.
That
Give it away. Give it
was this movie. That was the point of this movie. That was the point of what they were trying to get to Joe Gardner's character at the end of this movie. When we fast forward to the end of this movie and he's sitting at his piano and he's looking at all of the things he pulls out of his pocket from when 22 was in his body, he's realizing all of the simple things that made her enjoy Earth when she was him. And it's kind of like what this movie is trying to tell you as a viewer, and it was trying to tell Joe Gardner as a person when he was in this world, was to enjoy life as you have it. Basically, it's not just about yourself and, you know, trying to, you know, live life, you know, just trying to just have a job and, you know, for what it is, but it's just kind of like enjoy what you have, basically. Enjoy life every day that you have it, rather than just like live a job and don't love what you have. It's more like love life as it comes, essentially.
Yeah. It is an excellent lesson. I love it. So let's next time we're together, Adam, let's go just lay on the greats.
And get some dum-dum pops and suck on some suckers and talk about life. That's another thing 22 does. But let's go back, man. She goes to another thing that she does as she's eating, you know, NYC pizza in a corner, and she goes...
Which is the best pizza, by the way. New York pizza is the best.
I love thin pizza. It is fantastic. But
big floppy triangle pizza.
Not only does she do that, but another thing, well, the main thing is the differences between Joe Gardner as a cat and 22 as Joe Gardner. The big things are all Joe Gardner cares about while he's a cat, and while he's himself, let's just say that, but while he's a cat, is he cares about himself. Joe Gardner is a narcissist, and all he wants to do is he wants to play this gig with this famous saxophone player because he wants to be a big deal, and life is about making it for him, and he thinks that's the greatest thing. He just wants to be a big star. He wants to make it, and so all he cares about, he doesn't care about this character 22. He doesn't care about her. He doesn't care about her life. All he cares about is himself. So as he's a cat, he wants her to put on a suit. He wants her to look good. That's his goal. So first step in that process is her trying to get dressed up and make him look good so he can get to this thing. So this is kind of like key point number one in this film, is trying to get her in a suit. And that brings in this character from earlier in the film, this girl Connie, who was a student at his middle school, who was very, very good at playing jazz music. And she shows up at his... Yeah, on the trombone. She shows up at his, I'm assuming his house or his apartment. She shows up there while 22 is trying to try on a suit in Joe Gardner's body, and she's saying that she's going to quit taking lessons from him. And as Joe Gardner as a cat is saying, oh, what's she doing here? Tell her to go away or whatever. What 22 ends up actually doing is sort of ignoring Joe Gardner as a cat and kind of putting him aside and going out to talk to Connie. She shuts the door on Joe Gardner the cat, and she talks to Connie. She has a very nice conversation with Connie, and Connie ends up performing this awesome solo on the trombone. They have a nice little conversation, and Connie ends up telling her that she likes, 22 as Joe Gardner, and that Connie will continue to take lessons. And then she leaves. And it's because they had this nice conversation. They got to know each other better. And because of that...
22 liked it.
Yeah, and 22 enjoyed it. And because of that, nice little intimate moment, a very personal moment, instead of just straight up quitting lessons, they became better with one another. They got to know each other better, and she kept taking lessons. And then after that, 22 went back to Joe Gardner as Joe Gardner was a cat, and continued on the quest to wear a suit and get back to the quest to playing the show later that night.
But
and
also as a cat, tried to give himself a haircut.
Yes.
Hit 22 in Joe's body, and from cat paws, and also using electric clippers, fucks it up.
A complete failure.
He needs to go to a barber. And that was probably my favorite scene, was the barbershop scene.
Yes.
The exchange with that, and now, that
was so real.
it's 22 and Joe's body, and 22 is just, very unfiltered and talking about everything that they're witnessing and experiencing, and, thinks about life, and really connects with the barber and the people in the shop. And I also really liked, when the barber was saying like, yeah, man, I was wanting to be a veterinarian or something, and then because he had he ended
Loved
up
everything the
having a
barber
family.
had to say there.
Yeah. And then I also like that, like, she's like, oh, well, you didn't follow your dream. He's like, well, he's like, slow your roll. Like, I still enjoy my life. I get to meet all these different people and stuff, even though, learning, going to barber school is a lot cheaper than going to veterinarian school. And he's like, I still enjoy my life and I make the best of it, And it's kind of like, what was the movie we reviewed way back in last year, 2020, Onward, where Chris Pratt's character in Onward was basically saying, like, you use what you got, what you got, you use on a quest, the quest of life. You use what you got. Sometimes you do have to seek for other things to enhance your life, for a quest. But then until you get there, you use what you got to get to the thing that you need to get. Then you use that to get to the next thing. Anyway, so I love the barbershop scene. It was probably, even though I liked the majority of this movie, that was my favorite scene for sure.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting too that it was just, he said that he didn't go to veterinarian school because he was in the Navy, and because after being in the Navy he couldn't afford veterinarian school, so he went to barber school. And like you were saying, it's like 22 was saying that he wouldn't enjoy being a barber, and he came back with, oh, I enjoy being a barber. And after they stepped outside, 22 had asked, why didn't you ever tell me about this before? And the barber's response was, well, you never asked me about it.
Yep, he never asked. He never asked. Like, he was like refreshed by the 22 Joe Gardner. And I can only assume that Joe Gardner just talked about music, just talked about jazz, which is totally cool to love jazz. Totally cool. But I will say this is that real narcissist cannot change, like real ass narcissists, like they're actually just like messed up. Like they're like mentally ill. I will give Joe some credit is that he starts to see this about himself.
Yeah.
He starts to observe that, like, oh, I'm so in the zone, as they say, which is also, I really like this concept of someone being in the zone, whether they're, playing music or acting in Shakespeare or, doing whatever, that they are become almost like separated from the physical plane of existence, and they actually cross over into the next world, which is so cool. But they also just like lose all sense of reality and time and everything in the physical realm. And Joe seems like someone who's just so immersed in that, where it's almost like he hasn't been living in this world,
Right.
And I'm so glad that he, 22, by her just going about and living life to the fullest for the small time that she had, teaches Joe, like, hey, maybe you should ask how people are around you. It's totally cool to have a passion. It's totally cool to go what you're meant for. Totally cool. But also, like, ask people how they are. Ask people what they like too. And, like, it's about exchange and knowing that you're not the only person on this planet. And at the end, he does give his chance to live to 22. He
Exactly.
says he looks back at his life early in the movie and he realizes, wow, my life was meaningless. But then he looks back at the same life later on in the movie and realizes all the good moments he's had in his life. And then he tells 22, you can have my shot at living. And she's like, but what about you? And he's like, I've already lived. And he's right. He has been living. And then, the happy ending, the lords that be give him another shot at life, and he realizes, I don't know what direction I'm heading, I just know I'm gonna live every minute of it.
Exactly.
Which is fantastic. It's good to have direction, but it's also like, don't just live in the future, as Yoda says. And what was it, Empire Strikes Back? It's like, always in the horizon, his views was, but never his mind or where he was, what he was doing, to Luke Skywalker.
That was pretty good. Thanks, Grogu.
Oh, not Yoda, not Grogu's dad. Anyway, starting to become like Cookie Monster and Kermit the Frog. Anyway.
I mean, I 22's more or less 22's passion, so to speak. She says in the beginning of the movie that she doesn't have a spark, or she doesn't have, a passion sort, more or less. But really her sort of passion is for other people, or she's trying to hear everybody out. She's trying to talk with everybody. She wants to hear from everyone that's talking to her, where Joe Gardner's passion, or Joe Gardner's spark, is only music. It's only jazz. He's living just for music. He doesn't care what anybody else really thinks. I mean, he's going to talk to people. He does. He talks to everyone, but all he talks about is music and jazz. As you learn from that barber, is all he would talk to that barber about was music and jazz. And you find out after he goes through all of these ordeals through 22 as his body, as Joe Gardner, 22 being inside of him, after he goes through all of that to the point that they finally swap bodies, he gets to be himself again, and he finally gets to play that gig, that after he does all of that, after he finally gets to play jazz music and he plays, the gig of his life with Dorothea Williams, and Dorothea Williams tells him, wow, that was fantastic. You did a great job. We'll repeat the same exact thing tomorrow night. He finally learns, well, shit, I didn't want to, this is it. This is the same thing every single night. I'm going to be doing this every single night. And that's the learning point where it's kind of like, do I want to repeat the same exact thing every single night, or is there more to this? And I think that's kind of the turning point where you learn it's not just about, jazz music and repeating the same exact thing every single night. I mean, he can still love jazz music, but is it all just about myself? Joe Gardner's asking himself, is it all about me and just repeating the same thing every night? Or is it about helping other people and their passion? To where I'm under the assumption that, he wanted to go back and help 22. Obviously, that's step one. And when he gets his life back from one of the Jerrys, which I think the Jerry that helped him get his life back was Richard Ayoade. He was the Jerry that had the awesome... Richard Ayoade just has an awesome voice, so I'm assuming that he was the Jerry that gave him his life back. When he comes back, I'm going to assume he became a full-time teacher, because he was a fantastic middle school teacher, and I believe he would probably go back to help other people become musicians. I think it's just a fantastic resolution that it was really the moment when he was sitting at his piano and looking at all of the stuff that 22 did, and he sees all that stuff on his piano, that she had the part of a bagel, the lollipop, the little mementos that she had living her life, that it's kind of a reflection on himself, that it's like, wow, it's not just music, it's the little things.
And those things are kind of like you'd see in like a little kid's pocket,
Yeah.
And the thing is like, oh, little kids probably know how to live better than all of us adults, because they're always in the moment. Time seemed so much slower, as a kid. And, like now that we're young adults still, but adults, time, like a week now seems like a day. And a week back then as a kid seemed like a month, and a day seemed like a week now. And it's different. And I think it's because I'm guessing they just are more sensitive in the best way at how to just take it all minute by minute, moment by moment. And I think that's a fantastic lesson. When it came to writing, Pixar chose to portray the film's main character as a musician because they wanted a profession the audience could root for, then settled for a musician after trying for a scientist, which didn't feel as so naturally pure as a musician's life. Doctor describes Soul as an exploration of where your focus should be. What are the things that at the end of the day are really going to be the most important things that you look for back on and go, I spent a worthy amount of my limited time on Earth worrying or focused on that. Doctor and Jones worked on the development of the main character for about 2 years. According to Doctor, once they settled on the main character being a jazz musician, the filmmakers chose to make the character African American, as they felt it made sense due to how closely African Americans have been tied to jazz history. Very good, and thank you for not casting someone who looked like Ryan Gosling. Nothing against Ryan Gosling, but also that was some bullshit that in La La Land Ryan Gosling was mansplaining jazz. Should have been John Legend. Should have starred John Legend. Should have starred John Legend. And
I mean, that would have been really cool.
Oh yeah. Ooh man, would have been good. Again, nothing against Ryan Gosling. I love that guy, but why the fuck was anyway. Jazz, don't steal it away and give it to white people. Powers originally joined as a co-writer early in development to help write the character of Joe and was initially given a 12-week contract, which was then extended. When it came to casting in August 2019, Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Questlove, Felicia Rashad, and David Diggs were announced as starring in the film. And however, in March 2020, Angela Bassett announced she was cast. Within the release of the film's trailer in October 2020. Richard Ayoade, thank you. Graham Norton, Rachel House, Alice Braga, Wes Studi, Fortune Feimster, Zenobia Schroff, Donald Rawlings, and June Squibb were also announced to be in the cast. And here's another... I mean, I didn't realize it till the credits rolled, was that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross of Nine Inch Nails composed a new age score for the
I
segments
had
of the film.
no idea of that
awesome.
until I watched the credits, but very well done.
So cool.
Incredibly well done.
I'm like, holy shit, that is so awesome.
First thought is, where did the jazz music come from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross? However, they didn't really do the jazzy area of it. They did the ambient sort of areas of it, which, again, very well done. Very well done.
Yep. John
Batiste
composed a number of original jazz songs for the New York City-based segments of the film, which I really enjoyed as well. I loved it. Like we were mentioning earlier, Soul was originally scheduled for the theatrical release in the United States to June 19, 2020, but then 2020 happened. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was delayed to November 2020, and the slot replaced Disney Animation's films Raya and the Last Dragon, whose release was delayed to March 5th, 2021. But on June 3rd, 2020, Soul was selected as part of the lineup for the 2020 Cannes Film Festival. And on September 8th, 2020, it was announced that the film would have its own world premiere at the BFI London Film Festival. It was... it's just one of those things with this year. It's and I'm kind of worried, I suppose, about more movies this coming year that are, like Dune coming just to HBO Max and other films this year, and Wonder Woman 1984 came out. I know that got mixed reviews, but it's just I'm really worried about cinema fading away. I'm trying not to worry about it. Again, trying to stay in the moment, like this movie instructs us to do.
I don't even know what to think about it. I don't even know what it means for the industry. And all that I can say is we have to maintain a voice for the industry, because there are so many people that work in the industry, including you and I, by reviewing films. This is an occupation in itself, but we also make movies, and we also work in the industry in that regard. And there are other people, many people, including the directors, including the producers, including the screenwriters, that I cannot even count, on my hands. There are hundreds of thousands of people that work in the industry. And what are they going to do when the industry collapses? It can't just collapse like that. So we need to, maintain our voices on this. We need to keep, the industry alive. And to do that, we need to keep it in conversation. So we can't just let the industry die. So we need to keep talking about it, and it's got to find a place somewhere. So that's why if the movie is not in a theater, it goes to a streaming service. If it's not going to a streaming service, then where does it go from there? So we have to find a home for it somewhere. So if it's not going to HBO Max or Disney Plus or something, then where's it going to go? It's going to go to, Vimeo or Facebook or something. And if it doesn't go there, then we will find a home for it somewhere.
Yeah. and I'm grateful for the accessibility that we can literally watch any movie ever, from our couch. That's so cool. I guess I'm just worried about theaters closing. That's what I'm really. I don't think the TV industry and movie industry is gonna die. I think
I
they're
don't
always
think
gonna, figure out a way. I'm just worried about theaters. Going
Yeah,
away
I don't
permanently.
think we will quite allow that to happen. And if I think the United States, or the world for that matter, goes to the reins of saying theaters have to close, the first thing that's going to happen is an Indiegogo is going to open up, or a GoFundMe saying keep the theaters open, and someone, or everyone for that matter, is going to fund that Indiegogo so that a theater can stay open, and everyone can fill the theater on night one to watch a movie.
They'll need to expand, and as soon as everybody gets vaccines and it's safe to go out again, like, people are just going to be like pouring into the movie theaters and bars, and pouring into the movie theaters, and they're just going to be making a ton of money again, and the ones that have closed, the ones that are still surviving, will open new ones. But here's a good thing to note. Several days after Soul's release, research film Screen Engine reported that 13% of viewers had subscribed to Disney Plus in order to watch the film, and over-indexed among parents, particularly mothers. The company also said that Soul was already among the most watched straight-to-streaming titles of the year, right behind fellow Disney Plus release of Hamilton and fellow Christmas release Wonder Woman 1984. So it did really well, and Disney Plus definitely got a lot. I mean, 13% is huge.
That is huge.
So they got, in a way, percentages of more subscribers is sort of like, scoring big at the box office, so that's really cool. I'm glad Soul did so well. And I hope they consider making other movies like this, which, I hate saying diverse, because this world isn't going to be truly diverse until we stop saying the word diverse, when someone says, oh, it's the first woman that did this, oh, it's the first African American, it's like, that's awesome, and that shouldn't be weird, or it shouldn't be special, because that should just be the way it always is being diverse and different kinds of people. It's like, make more of these movies, Disney. Make more where there is more black people as protagonists.
I wish it wasn't weird,
where it's like not irregular. It's just a normal thing to have black people as lead characters. Yeah,
I wish it wasn't weird, and I wish it was the norm. I want to say that on Disney Plus, another thing to be aware of is there are a handful of very great behind the scenes videos that you can watch on this movie of Soul.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
Cool.
There's about 5 or 6 really good behind the scenes of the making of Soul videos that are available on Disney Plus that you can check out. Definitely recommend checking those out. There's a really good video. They're all very good to watch. Definitely recommend checking out all of them. But there's one that in particular that's standing out to me. There's one on Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross and John Batiste on making the music. There's one that's standing out to me about the animation of Joe Gardner's character. And interestingly enough, they're talking about John Batiste and his jazz playing for the movie. And they're talking about the beginning scene when Joe Gardner's character is talking to the middle school band class. And they were talking about the scene when he starts talking to Connie as she does her trombone solo. And he starts describing what got him into playing jazz music. And they were saying that Pete Docter asked John Batiste about what got him into jazz music, I believe, or sort of, it's a very, very similar reference, but I believe that entire dialogue or the entire script was based on what Pete Docter asked John Batiste. And he was saying it's about word for word and action to action. The whole animation is based off of what John Batiste did on the piano, and it almost looks exactly identical. So if you watch that interview, or if you watch that behind the scenes, John Batiste playing the piano, his actions on the piano and Joe Gardner playing the piano, it almost looks verbatim. And John Batiste's fingers and Joe Gardner's fingers almost look exactly the same. John Batiste has very long fingers. It's really crazy. So I thought it was really interesting, and I wish my fingers were that long. I have very small fingers, and John Batiste must be pretty tall, but he's got very long fingers. So I guess kudos to him. Very interesting. But yeah, I thought it was really cool, and I thought it was very interesting to see the very intensity of the animation quality on the piano playing in this movie. It just takes skill to make animation. I just got to say that. It just takes animation in itself takes skill, animation to make a musician playing the piano, and I thought just the quality of Joe Gardner playing the piano. Wow. So just kudos to this movie. That's what I got.
Excellent. Good stuff, my friend. Well, it's about that time, ladies and gentlemen, for our Slurps Up, Slurps Down section. If you're new to us, this is a time where we give a rating. That's right. Slurps Up means we like it and we recommend the movie. Slurps Down means we don't like it and we don't recommend the movie. And there may be some middle stuff that we say as well. So, my friend, Mr. Meisner, what is your Slurps Up or Slurps Down verdict? And what's your final thoughts on this movie?
To finalize everything on this one, I'm definitely going to say slurps up for the movie Soul, 2020 movie Soul. I got to say, Pixar usually does not disappoint in any regard. I'm not going to say every single one of their movies is a picture-perfect film. However, Soul, I do believe, is a fantastic film. I myself am a musician. I can certainly relate to the perils Joe Gardner goes through in Soul. I think it's just a fantastic movie that could be relatable to a lot of people. And I think it's a great movie to watch in regards to what Joe Gardner goes through as a human being. It's just great to see his perspective as he goes through. It's a great learning perspective for a human being to see that he's very interested in his case, he's very interested in jazz music. He wants to be this perfect jazz musician. He wants to make it, so to speak. And as he sees through the sort of the eyes or the emotions of, we'll say, a kid, the character 22, he sort of sees through their perspective that life isn't just about making it. It's about understanding, other people, and just appreciating life rather than just appreciating yourself, I should say. I thought it was great. I thought it was fascinating. Just, it's a great life lesson for a movie. And I think it's a wonderful movie to watch and just sort of, just appreciate life. I definitely got to recommend this movie, and I will certainly give it a slurps up.
Excellent, bud. I'm there with you. My only note on this is just the design of the souls. Again, they remind me of little blue gummy bears, and just made me hungry for gummy bears. And it would take me out, and then I would be drawn back in by the story and the voice actors, which are all fantastic. Other than that, I love this movie. It was so good. It was heartwarming. I really felt a lot for the lessons learned and everything Joe goes through. And I do relate to some of that on some level because, as like you, Adam, I'm also an artist. And, there was times where you're like, I'm meant to do this one thing and I'm really good at it and I love doing it. But when it's something like art where it's really hard to, that's the only thing you're doing. It's really hard to determine how the rest of your life is, like in terms of as much as I hate to say, your financial well-being, which is important. And I don't know, if I can go back in time and give myself some advice when I was younger, it'd be like, hey, yeah, pursue these artistic things that you love, but why don't you equip yourself with a couple skills while you're in college too? Some marketable skills, like start learning coding early or something, learn welding, learn how to translate Mandarin, something that's useful, something that's like on the market that or demand, people want to pay you money for. That way you can support yourself really well, live a good, comfortable life, and then use your money to then pursue your art, because it also costs money to do art as well. I'm sure Joe's pianos cost money, and Joe's, he's got to look good. Joe's suits cost money. Like you always got to, like spend money, and yeah, it's important to do that. And also while you're doing that, and like, yeah, you're doing your art, you can still pursue your art for sure. I'm not saying this is the only way. Some people just like, do really well and also like are really lucky from the start with the hard work as well. I mean, it also takes hard work, and don't have to worry about it. Not everybody has to worry about that. But if you're someone that is, that I guess like a lot of us do struggle, do try to trudge through, it's important to also enjoy life. Your art's important. What you're here to do, for what you're meant to do, what you feel like you're meant to do, your passion is very important. You don't have to give that up, but it's also important to enjoy the other aspects in your life. And that's what I learned from this movie, and I really appreciate it. I really recommend it. I give it a total full-on slurps up all the way to the great beyond. Very good movie. Go check it out on Disney Plus. Soul, a 2020 film by Disney Pixar. Also, officially coined a Disney Plus original. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Slips up. All right. That is our review of Soul, ladies and gents.
Ow!
Ow, ow! Woo! Moving on.
Ric Flair.
It's Ric Flair. Woo! It is, I just know Ric Flair really, because I wasn't really a wrestling fan, but I had this PlayStation 1 game called WCW Nitro, and I think he was in it. And I remember, like, you choose your character, it's kind of like in Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, and, like, it would show this, like, again, FNV, the little tiny, like, 5-second clip of each wrestler, like Macho Man, like, oh yeah, and so Hulk Hogan, and you move it on to the curse on the Ric Flair, and he's like, woo, and I just remember him doing that from the video game. Anyway, it's solo plug time. That's right. This is time where we plug something, because we'd like you to also check out stuff that we do besides Screen Slurps. But please still keep listening to Screen Slurps. But also, if you have time, check out other stuff too. Solo for me is that I stream on Twitch. I play video games, and I do other fun things on my channel. So follow me at twitch.tv/jayhart. That's twitch.tv/DASHJAYHART. I am also in post-production for a short film, fun black and white short film I filmed late 2020. And also I will be having a special Twitch stream that's separate from my personal Twitch stream, but more updates on that coming soon. That is in the incubation stage. Adam, what would you like to solo plug, my friend?
You can follow me on Twitter at Adam Meisner. I'm also on Twitch at /A Meisner. And you can follow me on Instagram at Adam Meisner. And I play music. I cover stuff. I do all kinds of things. Just let me know what you want to hear, and I will play music.
Adam saves cats from trees. He walks grandmas across the street.
Stop it. Don't blow it up like that.
He carries their groceries home. He beats up bad guys that deserve it, but then he just teaches them a lesson on how to like really get their lives together and helps them out and doesn't demonize them.
You make it sound like I'm this man, a master of all,
a hero. That's what I'm trying to say. He's a hero,
a vigilante or something.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please be sure to like/follow us on social media. We release new episodes every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and just about everywhere you can find podcasts on the internet. And be sure to follow and subscribe to us on those platforms. And if you like our show, please give us a nice 5-star review in the Apple Podcast app, which is also on iTunes. And please recommend us to everyone in your multiverse. It will help the show grow to new heights. So closing out, this is Dash Gearhart, aka DJ.
And I'm Adam Meisner.
Slurps up, and we'll catch you later.
Later.